Okay, so here we go. Welcome to creating travel expense reports in Concur. Travel expense reports can be standalone if there was no travel request required. So what would that situation be? Um, that situation would be something like you take an in-state day trip with no overnight and no hotel. You do not need a travel request authorization form. So you don't have to get that kind of travel approved. So you could, for example, create a travel expense report without an approved request. There are circumstances where you would do that. In general, we're creating travel expense reports from approved requests. And many times we are creating a travel expense report with a booking. So the process went like this. They created a travel request, got it approved. They had selected book and concur. They booked and concur. They went on their trip. They came back, and now they're going to create the travel expense report from the approved request, but they have to do something a little special when there's a booking, and I'll show you that today. Right? So the first one that we're going to do is creating a travel expense report from an approved request, no booking. There are a lot of instances where you don't need a booking. One example is an outside entity is paying for the doctor or the faculty's flights and hotel and conference fees, right? If you're not booking anything in Concur, you would choose no booking on your request, all right? So this tutorial shows us how to create an expense report from an approved request, but there's no booking in it. Now, there are two ways to start an expense report from an approved request. There are two ways. The first way is that you can open the approved travel request and then use a link in that travel request called Create a Report. The second way is to go to the Expense tab, create a report, and then pull in the approved travel request. What's important to note is that you don't break the link between the request and the expense report. Right now, to be honest with you, we are having these links broken, and the person has done everything right. So I'm just being honest with you. We have a ticket in to Concur to say, why is this happening? Because it shouldn't happen. The person didn't do anything wrong. They created an expense report from within the approved booking, and somehow by the time they get to the end of it to submit, that link has been broken, and they submit it, and it gets to the central office, right? That's the office of the controller, and they don't have a travel request attached to that report. Now, they are approving those anyway, but it's sort of like after we use the system for 2 months, we came across, a snafu. Something isn't working right, and Concur is going to help us fix it. So I'm just being honest with you that right now we have a little glitch, okay? In 90% of the cases, it works just fine. You open the approved request and you create the report from that screen. So I'm only mentioning that so that you don't get discouraged. We know there's a little defect and we're trying to get an answer from Concur. Now, travel expense reports that require a request and that don't have one, there's no request at all, are going to be routed to CBFO. That is Chief Business Financial Officer Dawn Rhodes, excuse me. Dawn Rhodes, and these end up in the office of the controller to review. And if this is you after class, your traveler asks you to put in an expense report and you know there's no approved travel request, that person may have had a very good reason why they couldn't do a travel request. And B, you should put as much information as possible into the expense report when that travel request is missing. So in other words, explain the circumstances as best you can, because I can tell you that they are not approving expense reports that don't have a travel request when it's required. So what is happening? What's happening from that? People aren't getting reimbursed. Okay. If they book with the travel agent, will the steps? Yes. You know why, Christina? The steps will be the same. Whether you book in Concur or with a travel agent, because you're going to have an approved request and pull it in. Okay. The approved request is key. And then Alyssa, what was your question? What are some good reasons?
Yes, I asked that because I have a new supervisor who did not know about Concur because he's new to the system.
Right.
And he has a conference coming up in October, and he went ahead and made his own flight reservations and then sent me the receipt to put in for reimbursement.
Okay, well, here's some bad news for him. You don't get reimbursed until after you travel.
Okay, that was one of my questions. It's
Yeah.
coming. I was going to ask later, but I'll try to ask now. Do we have to wait the 6 months if it's coming from his startup funds?
Yeah, there's no reimbursements before the travel's over. Now,
is that a refundable ticket?
I'm not sure. I'll have to check with him.
Because what you might want to do is see if that's if he can cancel that and then rebook that same flight using the TMC card, using the UMB card. That way you split out that money.
Okay, yes, that's a good idea. I will ask him that. That's
also, Alyssa, he has plenty of time to get a travel request in.
Exactly.
So he has to do that part, or if he doesn't put a travel request in, I mean, if he booked his tickets before Concur, or just the fact that he's brand new, they might cut him a break for not using Concur to book because he's brand new.
Right.
And I'm saying might, because they're rejecting these, and I'm sure people feel terrible, like I didn't get my money back, and I actually feel terrible for them, but they have to have a pain point somewhere or this stuff will just continue. So he needs a travel request. If he can get that refunded, he should get it refunded and rebook it with travel leaders who will use the TMC card.
Yeah.
And Alyssa, what would you select? What booking type would you select this is a quiz. What booking type would you select in the request if he's going to use Travel Leaders Corporation?
Well, I would do it for him, and I would choose Book and Concur, and I do it.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that, because if he's going to use Travel Leaders, your booking type has to be Agent Assist.
Right. And and yesterday I learned that, we can do it through Booking and Concur, and I can do it for him because the Travel Assist, you said most likely for international travel. I mean, we can still do it, but I could do it just the same. So
anytime
internationally, I would definitely use the Travel Assist probably.
Yes, but anytime that you're going to use the travel agency, your booking type should be Agent Assist, because otherwise, if your booking type is Book and Concur and you don't book and concur, you don't book and concur, You call travel leaders and they say, we can't book this
Right.
because it says pending online Concur booking. And then you're kind of stuck. And also, if you book outside or with travel leaders or something else, and your request is sitting there in a pending online booking status, you are not going to be able to pull it into an expense report. So basically, this system has a bunch of rules and it acts the way we told it to act, and then we have to conform to that. So you're welcome to, at any time, put in a help ticket and say, this is what I'm going to do. Is this the right way to go? Right?
Okay. Yep.
Yes. And we are actively working 1 million tickets a day. There was one more question before we start. Okay. How would I get the booking request if a travel agent did the booking? Would it appear when I set it to act as and then their name? I'm not sure what you're asking. Do you want to explain it a little better? I'm not sure what that question means. Christina. Okay. Christina, if you're there, I want to review your question. If not, we'll just continue, okay?
Yeah, because the request and the booking are two different things. You have to request out and then provide the travel agent with that request number, then they'll book. So they're two different things.
Yes. Okay, so let's see how this works. I'm going to create a travel expense report from an approved request, but there's no booking. Okay. So you can start a number of ways. You could click this new icon that's in the middle of the screen, click new, and then say request, right? Or report. You could click new and select expense report, or you can come over to the request tile here. All right. And here are my requests. You can see some are not submitted. Some are ready to book. The ready to book one says pending online booking. Now, this is a good example of what we're talking about, that this pending online booking, I call the Travel Leaders Corporation and say, can you book this for me? And they say no, because online booking means book and concur. So this over here that says fully approved, this was just a trip to Washington, D.C., and it says approved, and I'm going to click to select it. And when I open the screen, I can look over my request, and then I'm going to use this button, create expense report. Okay. I'm going to make this screen a tiny bit smaller if I can. Okay. Now look at the link. This is really important. I want to point this out to you. It has created an expense report. There's a report number, but it used the exact same name as the request. And then you can see that there's a link between these two because it says request in this little tile here and the approved amount. Now, let's try it the other way. Okay, so this was, I clicked requests, I opened the request, and then I clicked create expense report. So let's look at the other way to do this. I click the expense tab instead, and then I use this button called create new report. We are in the expense library, okay? The report library. I'm going to click create new report. That means expense report. And now I have a link at the top of this page called create from an approved request. And I'll click that link. And then it says, oh, you're going to create a report from an approved. Do you want to continue? Yes. So I'll click the button, create from an approved request. Here are the 2 approved requests that I have that are available. And so I'm just going to select the radio button for that trip to Washington. And then I'm going to click create report. And look, I'm on the exact same page. So that's just 2 ways to actually start the report. And you can see there's that link, right, to the request approved for $110.64. All right, now I know my 2 things are linked. To finish your expense report, it's going to bring in everything that you might need, right? Everything that was on your request, except for per diem. If you had per diem on a request, the per diem does not come over to the report, and I'm going to show you how to put per diem in an expense report in a different tutorial. Okay, now you always start with errors, always, because the report needs information that the request did not have, and that is receipts and vendors. Remember, when you say, I need $1,100 to fly somewhere on your request, you didn't tell the request, I want to use United Airlines, and you took a guess at the airfare because that's what it was at the time you looked it up. So any expense type that's missing info is going to have a red stop sign on the line item, and any expense that needs a receipt is going to have this kind of upload receipt button right here, right next to out of pocket. Okay, so you always start with errors and don't sweat it. As you work your way down the line items, these alerts will clear up. Now, it's possible that you pull in an approved request and you have day travel meals and personal car mileage and parking, but then you also incurred some other expense that you weren't anticipating. That's fine. You can click add expense, and you could add, the taxi or something else that you paid for while you were traveling. You can still add expenses to this report. So let's just work our way down the expense types. I know that I need a receipt, right? That's one thing that's wrong with this expense type, day travel meals. So to open it, I'm just going to click right on the line. And at the top, it tells me exactly what's missing. City of purchase. And then there's a warning, I need a receipt. You must attach a receipt. So for day travel meals, I had asked for $25 for either lunch or dinner because I was kind of, guessing, right? So I'm going to fill out the fields that need to be filled out. The first one is city of purchase. So I'm going to start typing Washington. All right. And then the system will match Washington, and I'll select Washington, D.C. So I cleared up one error, right? Now I'm going to enter the vendor name, and that was Panera. Okay. Now there's a payment type. You have to keep your eyes on this payment type. This is important. Out of pocket means I will get reimbursed in payroll for this day travel meal. P card means this expense was charged to a UMB P card. TMC card means that it was charged to the UMB travel agency card. Third party payment type means someone else paid for this. The conference organizer, etc. And also one of our foundations, UMBF, University Maryland Baltimore Foundation. Okay, so if the foundation pays, this payment type should say third party. But I bought my own lunch, right? So payment type out of pocket is fine. And I'm going to change the amount to what I actually spent at Panera. Okay, $18. Now look at this, right underneath amount, it says request 25, right? So it's just showing me the amount from the request that is allowable. Can you go over 25? Yes, of course. I mean, on the request, you're just taking a guess. And, you know, now it costs so much to eat lunch that you might spend $25 at Panera. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is add a receipt. So I'm going to click that receipt button, and then I'm going to select upload new receipt. I'm going to browse to the location of the receipts on my hard drive, select it, click open, and there's my Panera receipt. Okay, and now I'm going to save that expense. So when I click save expense, you can see that line item is all cleared up. Okay, and now I'm just going to go to the next line item. Out of pocket was my personal car mileage. So I'm going to open that by clicking it. And at the top, it says, you're missing a required field. Did the mileage calculation for your trip begin or end from home? Okay, so I need an explanation. That's one field I need to fill in. And I also need to enter this, did the mileage begin or end from home? And the reason they ask you this question is because travel policy is we don't pay you for the mileage from your house to your office ever, right? So if I say yes to this question, I need my mileage to show that the commute was deducted, Okay, so let me answer this question. I'm going to select yes. My explanation is drove to conference. You know, I'm not very inventive with these text fields. You put in whatever is appropriate. Okay, you can always click this mileage calculator right here and make sure that you did indeed deduct the commute. It literally is one button, right? Click a checkbox, deduct commute, and the system will take your commute miles off of this mileage. All right, now I'm just going to save this expense. I don't need a receipt. There's no receipt for mileage. So I'm going to click save expense. And we're back out here, and that line item has cleared up also. Now I'm going to do out of pocket parking. So I'm going to click the parking expense type. I only have one warning up here, and it says I need a receipt. Okay. There's my amount, 28. I need to make sure that matches my receipt. These used to be required, like vendor name, city of purchase. You can fill these in if you would like to, because this is a record of your travel, okay? But you can see there's no red dot, no red asterisk on these fields, so they are not required. All right, let me go get my receipt. I'm going to click add receipt and then upload new receipt. And then here's my receipt, conveniently labeled parking receipt. I'll click to select it, and then I'll click open. And there's my receipt. Oh, and it did cost me $28 to go there. Okay. Now, if you have comments on any expense type, you can add them here. This tells the approver something about the expense that you want them to know. You could also allocate this expense to a different funding source. You could also itemize expenses, and I'm going to show you how to itemize expenses today. All right, I'm just going to click save expense. Okay, I'm out here. I have spent $103.64. Okay, of an approved amount, $110.64. Now, before you submit, make sure that travel request is here with that amount. This is the link that you need to see. If you need to update the funding source, you could click report details and access the header and update the funding source. If you're missing a receipt, you could click manage receipts and then create a missing receipt declaration. Okay. Now, here's a special note. If you're a delegate creating an expense report for an employee, You, the delegate, cannot create the missing receipt declaration. Only the employee can do that. So if you are a delegate for an employee, your button will not say submit over here, will not say submit report. It will say notify employee. This will go to the employee. If you want to make sure he understands that you sent him something, you could call him or email him and say, hey, I finished your expense report, but you have to add the missing receipt declaration, right? Or you have to open it and submit it, okay? So for this example, we submitted it and we're just going to click accept and continue. There are some rules around submitting expense reports. They need to be submitted within 60 days of the travel. And then there's a secret 30-day window, right, where they could still get approved, but they have to be timely so they don't get rejected. John, do I have that right about the time frame?
We
I know, I'm all befuddled.
yeah. Well, it is 60 days until it's taxable.
Oh,
But
okay, right.
after 60 days, if they don't file an expense report, the IRS will try to collect taxes on that, and you want all the money back you can get. So you're going to get a warning when you're approaching 60 days, but 60 days to submit it, and then you have about 30 days after that, because sometimes approvers are out of the country. Approvers
Yep.
might not have access to it. So you have a 30-day grace period, but the traveler must submit it within 60 days or it'll be taxable.
Yeah, okay. So I was correct. 60 days, then this 30-day grace period afterwards to get it approved. After 60, it becomes taxable. And I think after 6 months, they won't even consider reimbursing you. And this is going to be hard on some people who are not used to being on time with their expenses. All right, I'm going to click accept and continue. Now I'm just going to point out here, all of my payment types were out of pocket, right? All of my payment types were out of pocket. So the amount due the employee is the whole amount of the expense report. You will see when third party pays or P card paid or travel leaders booked something and paid, you will see due employee a certain amount, and the amount total might be much higher. So this due employee is what's going to show up in that employee's paycheck from this report. All right, I'm just going to click submit report. Okay, not difficult. Go slowly, right? Just work your way down the line items. The system is kind of talking to you and telling you with errors and alerts what it needs, what it expects. And please, please remember to look at the payment type. That's really important. Okay, create a travel expense report without an approved request. I'm going to go just a little bit faster this time. Okay. This is, oh, looks like I have this wrong thing linked here. Sorry. Creating an in-state travel request form. Sometimes you don't need an approved request. And an in-state travel request form is one example of that. So what does that mean? That means I have to do everything manually, right? Okay. I'm going to click new, the new button. This is how I'm going to start. And then I'm going to select start a report. I could have just have easily have clicked expense up here. Okay. All right. Now I have to fill out the entire thing because it's not pulling any information from anything else. So this is a header. The policy should stay travel. We're going to go over here to trip name, and I'm going to say TE travel expense 2023 for the calendar year, my initials LP, and then really I just went downtown Baltimore for some training or something. Okay. All right. Trip start and end date. You can select it from the calendar. See the calendar icon, and I've done that in other demos, but in this demo, I'm just going to add the start and end date, and they're the same because it was just a one-day trip. What was the trip purpose? Click the drop down and select, I went downtown to get trained on something. Trip type, in-state. Traveler type, you will select employee, faculty, employee, staff, employee, student, or maybe, yes, actually only employees will be listed here on expense reports because non-employees don't get reimbursed in Concur. So I'm staff, I'm going to select staff. Does this trip include personal travel? I'm going to select no. Describe the benefit to UMB, use of new technology. Okay. Justification for no travel request, no car, no hotel, in-state travel. Okay, in-state travel. For this field, is UMB paying for any portion of this travel? There's nothing to enter here. Okay, that's because this travel expense report does not require a request, and the assumption is that the expenses will be reimbursed to the employee. Okay. Non-employees are not reimbursed in Concur. They are reimbursed through a non-PO invoice in Quantum Financials. If you're new here to UMB or this, you're new to this Concur and reimbursements, please take the class using non-PO invoices for check requests and find out how to do that properly for non-employees. All right, I'm going to scroll down. Look at my SOAP F is completely blank because I didn't pull anything in from a request. So we start with field number 1 and we work through these fields numerically 1 through 6. If you're charging a SOAP F, you're going to have to enter the word SOAP F here if it isn't here. If you're charging a sponsored project and the word SOAP F is here, delete it and enter the sponsored project number. Don't enter the award number, enter the project number. Okay, so I'm going to type the word SOAP F, and then I'm telling the system I'm charging accounting segments. And then I'm just going to look for ones that belong to my org, 1020, 60, 10. In this org field, I can enter 1020, 60, 10, the whole thing, or I can just enter part of it. So I entered 1020 and then I scrolled through and found my department number. The activity number now is only going to be activities that belong to this org. So I'll click in this field and I'll scroll down. They're always way at the bottom. I feel like this is a little navigational, thing you have to learn, that in Concur, your most recently used will be listed first, and then whatever matches your search will be way at the bottom. So I'm just going to select this activity. I'm going to do the same in the purpose field, click in it, scroll down, and select this STAPA PSC trauma. Okay, in the source field, I'm going to click in it and scroll down, and there's only one available. So I'll select it. Function code, same thing. Click in the field, scroll down, and select the only function code available. Now, what do you do when someone says to you, do this in Concur, and here's the SOAP F you should charge, and then that SOAP F isn't available, right? You start entering those SOAP F values and they're not there. right? Let's say you need to use 405 source and function 350, and it's not in the as an option. It's not an option. You need to put in a help ticket to Concur and give them this accounting segments, right? This SOAP F, and tell them to please look at it because you're trying to create travel and charge that SOAP F and you're not finding it in the system. That has to be a help ticket. All right, now I'm just going to scroll down, and here's something important. Claim travel allowance. Travel allowance is per diem in an expense report. So if this is an overnight trip, you're going to click yes, I want to claim travel allowance. If it's not an overnight trip, you're going to click no, I don't want to claim travel allowance. If you accidentally click no and you come to the expenses page, there's still a way to create travel allowances, and I'm going to show you in another tutorial how to do that. Here's the stumbling block for people. I had per diem, etc., and it didn't come over, right? Why did the per diem not travel to the expense report? And also, I didn't find an expense type called per diem on my travel expense report. Okay, that's because on the expense report, it's called travel allowance. Okay, request clearly says per diem. Expense report says travel allowance. All right, now this was an in-state trip, so I'm going to select no, I don't need travel allowance, and then I'm going to click create report. The report's blank. Why? Because I didn't need a request, and so I don't have any data here. I'm going to click add expense, and I'm just going to start adding the expense types and the amounts and everything to my report. So you can search, you can use this search bar, right? So you could type in, miscellaneous. You could type in TBE request, something, whatever expense type you're looking for. I'm just going to scroll down this list and select parking. Okay, now for this parking expense type, the transaction day is the day that I paid for the parking. The explanation is parking at UMCP, that's University of Maryland College Park. The vendor name is UMCP parking. I made that up, of course. The city of purchase, type in College Park. When you type in College Park, the system will propose values for you. And who knew that College Park had was the name of a city in other states. So select College Park, Maryland, enter the amount of parking, okay, and then upload your receipt. Click upload again. Find the parking receipt, browse on your hard drive. If you're going to be doing a lot of this work, you know what I would do if I were you? I would create a new folder under documents or under downloads that was just, Dr. Smith's travel, right? Or all travel or Concur receipts or something like that. So I'm going to click the parking receipt and click open, and it'll be added. And one thing I want to remind you of is that there's a 5 meg limit on any attachment, any single attachment size, 5 megs. Okay. There's not an overall limit like 100 megs, but each attachment has to be smaller than 5 megs. Also, the system will not take Word or Excel. If you have something in Word, turn it into a PDF first. The system will accept PDFs and most picture file types. Okay, I've filled this out. I'm going to click save and add another. Now, If I used save expense in the upper right-hand corner or in the lower left-hand corner, I would return to that main screen where I clicked add expense, okay? In this demo, I'm using this button called save and add another, and it brings me to this screen. It looks a little different. However, I'm still going to find an expense type. So I'm just going to click the drop down and I'm going to select day travel meals. Okay. And now I'm going to enter the transaction date. And my explanation is lunch while in travel status over 8 hours. Are you really going to type something like that? Probably not. But I typed it to remind you of the policy that you are allowed day travel meals if you're in a travel status for over 8 hours for any day trip. Okay, the vendor was Panera again, because apparently that's all I eat. Right. The amount is $18 at Panera. Okay. City of purchase, College Park. And then I'm going to upload my receipt. Click upload receipt image. Find your receipt on your hard drive, click to select it, and then select open. Okay. Now there is a button here called hide receipt, and that's just so you could see more of the screen, right? And once I click hide receipt, this link will become show receipt, right? And that's just for you, you know, if it's easier for you to read the screen. Okay, I'm going to save this expense. Remember the difference. Save and add another will return me to a screen that looks like this, and I'll have to select the expense type. And just plain old save expense is going to return me out here to my line items. So we're going to continue working on this report. Click add expense, scroll down, personal car mileage, okay? Now here's the mileage calculator. So I'm going to click that. And I'm going to enter my from and to points. So I went from 5929 Theodore Avenue to College Park, Maryland. Okay. And you can even add a location in here. You know how in your car on your GPS, you'll just your map, you'll just on your phone, you'll just type something like, you know, Target, right? Whatever you're looking for. This mileage calculator will do the same thing. So you could have put something in here like College Park, you know, Conference Center, and it would find it. But once you enter something, you can always press tab and the system will go find that location and draw you a map of how to get there. Okay, it's a 41-mile trip one way, but I'm going down and back. So I'm going to select this link, make round trip. Okay, and now I'm going to select this checkbox, deduct commute. When I select deduct commute, the system's going to say, look at my home and office address right here. The system is going to say, it's about 7 miles from Laura's house down to her office. So I'm going to deduct 6.9 miles off the commute. Well, and then I'm going to say, deduct the round trip. Okay, deduct a round trip. And so they've just deducted 13.8 miles to give me total business miles of 72 miles. Do you have any questions about how to use this? It's not hard. What would you do if you drove to your office in the morning, and then you left from your office to go down to College Park? What do you think? Your waypoint, your first waypoint would be your office location. Okay. And then when you make that a round trip, it will be office location to College Park back to office location, and you will not have to deduct a commute. Okay? All right. I just want to make that clear how this screen is working. All right, I'm going to select add this mileage to my expense. And when I do, I have to give it some more definition. So the transaction date was the day I drove down. Explanation is College Park. Did mileage calculation for your trip begin or end from home? Okay, I'm going to select no because I deducted the commute. I can add some comments in here. If I drove this 2 days in a row, I could multiply 72 by 2, and my comment could say, I went to College Park 2 days in a row, right? Something like that. So I'm just going to save this expense. And now I have some alerts. There's one alert. My expense report is $93.16. I'm going to open this and it says, you indicated mileage calculation began or ended at home. Remember to deduct the commute miles. All right, so that's just a warning. And you can see that same yellow warning on the car mileage, right? And there's a comment there. Warnings don't stop you from submitting. Okay. I'm going to close that and submit this report. Click accept and continue. And here's the amount due the employee, that's me. And I'll just submit the report. When you submit a report, you most of the time get this report submitted, like one more, one more message to acknowledge, so you can just click close. Okay. Any questions? That was without an approved request. Basically, you have to fill in the entire header, the entire funding source, and you have to add every expense type. Right, let me check my time. Oh, we have plenty of time. Okay. Now we're going to do one called creating a travel expense report from an approved TBE request. TBE stands for travel and business expense. On campus, most of us called the prior system e-travel. It's the same thing, okay? So for a period of time, we are experiencing travel that people are going, they're taking their trips, they booked their tickets, in January, and they have a travel request, but it was approved in the old system, in the prior system, okay? So they don't need to do another one if they downloaded that travel request from the prior system. These were the processing dates. So you had to have downloaded your fully approved travel request from the old system by Friday, April 28th, and the old system went offline. Now, I think that the controller shop can still look in the system, but none of us can. So if this is a situation that you have with someone that you are creating travel for, and the doctor or the faculty says, I know I have an authorization that was done in February. I know that I did it, and I have an email to prove that my travel was authorized. You could, and you don't have a copy of that approved request from the old system, you could reach out to the office of the controller and see if they can pull it for you, okay? In general, none of us can access that system anymore. All right. So these are all the dates that we were talking about. These are in the past. We are still consuming travel requests from the prior system to be used in expense reports. All right. And that'll go on for a while until we've consumed all of them. This is what the e-travel system used to look like. And I don't even think anyone has this link anymore. but regardless, you can't get one out of there now yourself. This flow, we'll just look at this last two boxes. Print a copy of the approved travel request by April 28th. Attach it to your Concur expense reimbursement. All right. Oh no, is it past April 28th and you didn't print a copy? Okay, start over in Concur with a travel request. All right. And again, these are not occurring every day, but I want to show people how to do this correctly. This is the same kind of timeline for downloading those and when to start over in Concur. Like Alyssa's example, she has that traveler has plenty of time to start over in Concur with an approved request. Now, if your request was approved in the old system and you have a copy of it, you can travel and you can go straight to the expense report. You can go right to the expense report. So if you have an approved request in the old system and those tickets were booked, however, right, and this is prior to go live, you can go straight to the expense report and no, you will not need a request and you won't need to book in Concur or anything else. So is everyone clear on that? I'm repeating myself, but it's an important distinction. We get help desk tickets all the time about using that request that was approved in the old system. You don't have to book your travel in Concur if you've already booked it before go live, right? You're relieved of that requirement. And you don't have to have a travel request in Concur if you have an approved one in the prior system. You're relieved of that requirement. Okay, there is a special expense type that they created that will tell the system not to route this to Dawn Roads for approval. And that expense type is called TBE request. And when you add it to an expense report, it'll tell the system to bypass that extra level because you do have an approved request, okay? And this is exactly what those old requests look like. This is the travel request number that you need, okay? This is the field, describe the benefit to UMB, okay, if you need that. These are the travel dates and the itinerary from Baltimore to Cambridge, and then from Cambridge back to Baltimore. All these expenses are not broken out in your prior system, but the traveler is going to have receipts for you, okay? So estimated total $1,476 for the entire trip. And down here where it says Project SOAP F, this would be the funding source that it'll get charged to. Right. What you really need to see is down on the bottom of this report, approved electronically by, and there should be a name here and a date. Okay. If someone hands you one of these and there are no names down here, this is not an approved report. All right. You should see approving authority at the bottom of this. You don't have to enter this anywhere, but you need to see this. Otherwise, it's not approved. All right, let's go create our report. I'm just going to, I went to the expense tab, and when I go to the expense tab, here's all the expenses that I had sitting around. You know, this is training data, right? These aren't real trips. And I'm going to click create new report. Okay, because there's no travel request to pull in, you have to complete all the header information in its entirety, and you're going to get that information, most of it, from that approved travel request from the prior system. Okay, the trip name, I want to point out these buttons. If you see a gray circle button with a question mark in it, I'm going to click it and show you. This is custom help that we built in to give you some help right at the field level. Okay, so on trip name, when I clicked the question mark help button, it gives me a little description of how to name my reports. So I'm going to name this report PE travel expense 2022. That's the calendar year. LP, those are my initials, and Cambridge is the city, domestic city that I went to. Okay, I'm going to enter a trip start and end date. Trip purpose, select the drop down, scroll down and find training certification trainer. So I'm the trainer for those 2 days. Trip type, out of state. Traveler type, faculty, there are many to choose from here. Okay, and on expense reports for non-employees, they are reimbursed as a non-PO invoice in Quantum Financials. So only employees will be available here. Does this trip include personal travel? I'm going to select no. Describe the benefit to UMB. Training at MIT for the week. Justification for no travel request. Travel request completed in e-travel system. Justification for not booking air in Concur. Booking was completed before go live. That makes sense, right? Okay. Now the SOAP-F fields are blank because I'm not pulling anything from an actual Concur request. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to charge a project, and to do that, I'm just going to enter the project number 300295991. Okay, and the system found that project, and I'll select it. Okay, now I'm going to select the org activity, purpose, source, and function, the SOAP-F values that belong to that project. Right? So I'm just going to click in the org field and scroll down, and there's only going to be one. There's only going to be one answer for each of these because there's only one SOAP-F tied to that project. So I'm going to select School of Pharmacy as the org. In the activity field, I'll scroll down and select unspecified. It's the only one available. Purpose, same thing. Unspecified, it's the only one available for that project. Source code, there are two here. There are two here because this project happens to have cost sharing. Okay. Here's the general rule. In this source field, if you are using a project number as a funding source, you should always select the source that starts with a 3, not the source that is like 285 or 275 for cost sharing. Always select the source that starts with a 3. In the function field, I'll click it and I'll just select the only function code there. All right. And now I have this per diem to deal with again. Option 1, yes, I require travel allowance, is going to bring you to a screen that is asking you to create itinerary, and it doesn't look like any other screen in Concur. Okay. And the font is super tiny, right? If you select no, it'll bring you to the expense report screen where all the expense types are listed. And you could still create travel allowance / per diem on that screen. Now the default on this question in the header is yes. So watch this field, okay? Because only because you're going to be confused if this yes is selected and you get to the next screen and you're like, what is this? What is this itinerary, etc. Okay, so I'm selecting no, and I'm going to create the report. Now, the first thing I need to do is add the TBE request expense type. You should only be adding this one time. We've had some help tickets where people were trying to figure this out, and they basically added the TBE request type, 7 or 8 times for every single expense, one for each expense. You should only add it once. It is the trigger to say, hey, don't route this expense report to Dawn Rhodes. Okay. I'm going to click expense and I'm going to search for it. And it's all the way at the bottom under a category called other. And here's the expense type. TBE request, required if request was completed in the legacy system. After a while, again, this will go away once we've consumed all the travel that actually occurred that is attached to these approved travel requests that were approved in the legacy system. Okay, I'm going to select TBE request, and this is the expense type. So I need that TBE number. Remember I showed you that? 10225545. Okay, does the system go out and check to see if this number is accurate? No. How could it, right? So this is on you to be accurate. There's no match. The system's not going out to say, oh yeah, that's a valid TBE request number. Okay, and now I'm just going to save the expense. Okay, I do need a receipt here, but the receipt really is that attachment. So I'm going to click upload, then upload new receipt. Okay, here is that TBE request. I'm going to click to select it and open it. And now there's my TBE request added to my expense report that I created, right? Without a Concur approved request. I created this using an approved request from the legacy system. Okay, this absolutely has to happen. If you forget this, it will route to Dawn Rhodes and the central office will reject it, definitely. And you'll get it back and be wondering there's nothing wrong with this. What happened? Okay. All right, now you can continue to add expenses, add expense for the rest of the Concur expense report, but this demo stops just after adding this TBE request expense type. All right, what questions do you have on this process? Anything? We can definitely help you. Just remember that you have all these tutorials to walk you through some of these processes. Is there any questions we should answer in the chat, John, or no?
No, I've been keeping up with them.
Okay.
Just one comment on the TBE expenses. That'll be, less and less and less as we move along and all these reimbursements are made. And what Laura said, it will disappear. I actually had one this morning that I had to help somebody with, but it is waning right now and will go. If you try to put it in there and sneak it through, it will get caught in the controller's office by the central review, and it'll kick back to you. So then you'll have to file it as an exception, and it will go to Dawn Rhodes. So if you try to sneak it through, it won't get through, and it'll get kicked back to you, further delaying the expense being reimbursed to the traveler.
Right. Right, good point. So yeah, this is how we bridged the gap between the old system and the new system. And we looked in the prior system and said, like, how many of these? Do we have 500? Do we have 10? And I think the number came back at 60. But I really believe there's more because I've helped several people and it's just a confusing thing for them. You know, I got it approved, but where do I start? So here's the deal. If they have an approved request from the prior system, they need a copy of it, and you can skip the booking and you can go right to the expense report. Okay, so it's probably the easiest process we have right now. All right, now we're going to do this one called creating a travel expense report from a Concur booking. So when someone is booked in Concur and they've taken the trip, okay, and then they hand you some receipts and say, can you do my expense report for me, right? You're going to have to do one kind of special thing when that booking has occurred in Concur. Okay, so you're going to review the steps in this tutorial to pull in the available expenses that were generated from the booking. This is something you don't know until you have experience in booking. Bookings create e-receipts, and those e-receipts live in Concur. So I created a travel request to go from Baltimore to Cambridge. On my request, I said, book in Concur. My request got approved. Sure enough, I booked in Concur, right? And then I went on the trip and I came back and I asked you to create my report. You are going to have e-receipts available in Concur from whatever got booked in Concur. Okay, so when you create the expense report and you pull in that approved travel request, it's going to have a line for airfare, but guess what? You have an available expense in Concur from that booking, and that's the one you need to use. Unfortunately, because I'm not a traveler, I had to do this tutorial with just some screenshots. So it's not click here and click there. It's sort of, you know, a little stunted. You're going to pull in the expenses with the actual totals and the receipts from the booking. Okay. Concur needs the expense types that were actually booked to complete this triad of 3 things linked: the request, the booking, and the expense report. Okay. All right, here we go. This is my manage expenses screen. Okay. I have available expenses here. How'd they get there? The booking created those. Unbelievably, right? The booking created available expense line items. And look at the amounts. They are exact. This is what got spent at Avis, what got paid for through Concur. This is what got paid for through Concur for Southwest. So these are going to be in that person's report library, right? When you click the expense tab and you come to a report library, if their booking was in Concur, they're going to have a list of them down here. Okay, so you're going to use these check boxes to select which of these receipts go to which report. So I'm selecting the car rental and I'm selecting the Southwest tickets. And then I'm going to come to this button called Move To. And when I click Move To, the reports that I have available are going to be listed. And I'll select, obviously, San Antonio. Okay. So you're going to look at the available expenses. You're going to select the checkbox for the expenses that you want to move to a report. If the report already exists, you can select the report. If it's a brand new report, you could click new report, but you have to use the move to button to select the report that you want to move it to. Okay, I moved it to the San Antonio report, right? There it is. Now, do you notice anything weird on my list of expense types? Do you notice anything odd on this list of expense types? This airfare line and this car rental line say reservation underneath them. This is generated from Concur. I want to give you a minute to kind of look at the screen and see if there's anything odd that you would address. And if you can't guess, that's fine. I'll just give you like 3 seconds. Does anybody have a guess? Okay, I have airfare twice. I have airfare that was pulled in from the request. And then I have airfare that says reservation, and this is the one that I moved to this report. So I can't have airfare $1,078 twice. That's not true, right? So I need to delete the airfare, the car rental, anything that came from an online reservation. I need to delete the original one. All right, so I would just select this checkbox. Excuse me. I would select this checkbox, and when I do that, all these buttons across the top become active, and I would select delete. You can only have one airfare with the same dates on it. So I'm keeping the one that says reservation because it has a receipt attached to it, right? This is the exact amount and it has an e-receipt. And I'm going to get rid of this one, this airfare line that was on my request. When I open that airfare line with the reservation, there's the receipt. Now, this is something you haven't seen yet, right? But this is what happens when you pull in airfare or a hotel or a car, whatever you booked in Concur. When you pull that actual reservation into your expense report, you get an e-receipt, you get a ticket number, you get a vendor number, you get a payment type, and you get an exact amount. Okay, exact amount. Right? So from here, you could continue working on your report and submit it. This is just some screen prints to show you how to do this, because in real life, I obviously don't have any bookings. If I booked something and paid for it, just to use just to get an example for class, I might not get our money back. So booking was not live until we went live. So there was no way to create documentation that didn't create real bookings. Okay. All right. That's what you have to do when the booking was done in Concur. And you're going to know because your available expenses section is going to have travel in it, like airfare. 99% of the time it'll have airfare and it'll say reservation and it will have an e-receipt with it. So you just move it to whatever report you want to move it to, and then you delete the one, the duplicate that came from the request. The class is so quiet. I'm a little worried that I'm like overwhelming you. The problem is, we could teach this for probably 4 hours, right? You do have all of these to help you and to go through these. after class. Don't forget where these exist. I know John put the link in the chat. They are all available on the portal also, if you forget where they are, to help you do some of these things. Like, you might not have to do this for a month. So use these references. You can look at the recording of this class. I'm going to socialize these recordings. You can also look at this short video series that I showed you that was on the business application page. Okay, so we have lots of help for you. All right, now I'm going to create travel allowances in parentheses per diem and an expense report. Okay. First, you tell the system if you want to use travel allowances or not on that screen at the bottom of the header. Okay. Then if you say yes to that, the very next screen is asking you to build an itinerary, which is fine. If you say no to that, do you want to include travel allowances? You can still access travel allowances from the next screen. You won't be driven there by the yes button, but you can access it even if you say no. So you create an itinerary, and the system uses the itinerary to enter lines for per diem based on the travel start and end dates and the destination of the travel. So you can save the itinerary as an available itinerary, and you can reuse it if you have recurring trips to the same destinations. You just change the dates. Once the itinerary is established, you're going to use the expenses screen to indicate what meals you're claiming. All right, and I'm going to show you how to do all of this. So what's the difference? On a travel request, when you add per diem, the system looks at the start and end dates and the city, and it gives you one line of per diem, and it's a lump sum, $375. Okay. It gives you one line and it's a lump sum. That line with the lump sum does not transfer to the travel expense report when you pull the request in. So you have to create travel allowances and an itinerary and select any meals you want to exclude. And then you will see in one line for each day of your travel, one line of per diem for each day. Request, per diems in a lump sum. Expense report, per diem is broken out by the day. All right. We just went over all of this. Now, here's where we are. We're in the header of an expense report. This is the bottom section. Do you want travel allowance or not? I'm going to say no. That's fine. Now, I came here, and here's all my expenses already, and per diem was not transferred. So I can click travel allowance. Even if I said no to the screen, to the question on the screen prior, I can still create per diem from this link. So I'm going to click travel allowance, and I'm going to select manage travel allowance. Oh, here's my itinerary screen. What did I tell you? As promised, it doesn't look like any other screens in Concur, and the type is really tiny. The font is very small. So let's look at this screen and what it's doing. At the top, we have numbered tasks. 1, create the itinerary. 2, use an available itinerary. And 3, make any adjustments to the per diem. Okay, so right now we are on number 2, available itineraries. You can tell where you are because the number 2 is bold, right? The lower section is going to hold every itinerary you ever created for that faculty member or yourself. Okay, once you create itineraries, they will stay down here and you can reuse them. You can reuse them if you need to. As you add an itinerary, be careful to delete any per diem meals that you might be claiming as a business meal on the trip. For example, you can't have 2 dinners on the same day, a business meal plus a per diem meal, okay? And we know when our faculty travel, our doctors travel, our VPs travel, they often have business meals. We just have to deduct the per diem and then include a business meal instead. Okay, I'm going to click Create New Itinerary at the top. When I do that, the system automatically says, let's add a new stop on your itinerary. Okay. The itinerary's name is derived from the trip name, right? TE, expense report, 2023 calendar year, LP, my initials, and then New York City to Poughkeepsie, right? That's an abbreviation. So for every city that I travel to, I'm going to create a new stop. An itinerary needs at least 2 stops. Can anybody guess why? You have to have at least 2 stops in an itinerary. Anybody got an idea why?
Where you start and where you arrive?
Yes, the first one is where you arrive, and what's the next one? So the first stop is going to be me arriving somewhere, and the second stop is going to be
You returning.
yes, exactly, you returning. Okay, this is one of the first stumbling blocks that I came to in Concur. I was like, oh yeah, Concur's easy to use, blah blah, cruising around in it. And then I got to this screen and I said, what is happening? I don't understand this. And I immediately got a message, you need 2 stops in your itinerary, but I didn't realize that I was creating per diem. Okay, so you always have a departure city right here. And then the second stop, the departure city will be where you arrived to, right? So stop 1, where you're going, stop 2, where you're coming back from. That's at minimum. All right. So I'm going to click in the departure city and I'm going to type Baltimore because that's where I'm leaving from, and select Baltimore from the drop down. And then I'm going to enter the date that I left Baltimore, January 20th, and the time. And listen, this time does not have to be accurate. You don't have to go to your airline ticket or your train ticket and see exactly the departure time. We tried to get rid of these time fields and Concur said, no, you're stuck with them. So just put in 7 a.m. or, an approximate. Now my first stop is New York. So I'm just going to type New York and then I'll select New York, New York from that drop down. There's the date I arrived, 1/20, okay? Your departure city and your arrival city are almost always going to have the same date, unless, for example, you left on a late flight or you went to Europe or something like that, right? So I departed Baltimore on the 20th. I arrived in New York City on the 20th. I'm just going to enter a time, 10 a.m. And way down at the bottom where you can barely see it is an important save button. So I created a stop and I'm going to click save. All right, now I need a second stop. I'm going to click add stop. And this stop is going to identify the segment from New York to Poughkeepsie. Okay, so here's my trip. Baltimore to New York, stay overnight. New York to Poughkeepsie, stay overnight. Poughkeepsie back to New York, right? And then from New York to Baltimore. So the destination city defaulted as the departure city because that's logical. Once I'm in New York, I have to leave from New York. So I'm going to enter the day I left New York, okay, 1/21, and the time. And I wanted to show you, it defaulted Baltimore City as the arrival city because most of our trips are just 2 stops. I went there and then I returned. Okay, so it defaulted Baltimore, but I have to overwrite that and say Poughkeepsie. Okay, and then select Poughkeepsie, New York. So I went to New York on the 20th. I stayed overnight. On the 21st, I left New York and went to Poughkeepsie. I'm going to enter my arrival time, and then I'll click save. Okay, now I have Baltimore to New York, and I have New York to Poughkeepsie. I'm going to add a stop. And look at my departure city is Poughkeepsie, right? And so I'm going to say on the 22nd, I left Poughkeepsie at noon, and I went back to New York. And I'll enter my arrival city as New York, and then I got there around 1 p.m. Okay, and then I'll click save. So this happens to be a multi-city. Now I want to add a stop. I want to add one more stop because otherwise I'm stuck in New York, correct? So I'm going to click add stop. The departure city is New York because that's where I arrived. And the arrival city is Baltimore because that's where I need to go to. And I'm going to enter the day that I left New York and went back to Baltimore and the time. Arrived at Baltimore. There's the date. And I'm going to say 6 p.m. Okay. And then I'm going to click save and look at my itinerary. Okay. You review the stops that you added. You're going to check the departure and arrival cities and their dates. Look at this after you added it. If something went wrong, you can click to select it and delete that row and add a new one. You can also just click right on the row and the itinerary will appear in this right-hand panel, and then you could edit it. Every itinerary has to have at least 2 rows for a round trip. Domestic per diem is based on GSA rates and the travel destination. So first and last days of travel are automatically reduced to 75% in Concur. Okay, you don't have to do that calculation. All right, so here's my itinerary. I click next. I'll click next again. So all I did was click next on the bottom. And this is my actual per diem. Okay, so I created a new itinerary. When I clicked next twice, it took me to expenses and adjustments. And here's my expenses. So if I click a checkbox all the way to the left, it will exclude this entire line. Otherwise, I can just click the checkboxes for the meals that I don't want to claim. All right. And if you have a business meal that's a dinner, you have to take it off on the day that you're claiming a business meal because the system is going to look at dinner provided on 123 and business meal also on 123. And it's going to say, I'm not paying you for 2 dinners, basically. Okay. All right. On the right, in the rightmost column, you can see that going to New York, my allowance was $59.25. While I was in New York, 2 lines down, it's $79. So what's the difference here between going to New York and actually being in New York? Both of these cities say New York, or both of these lines say New York, but my per diem,'s different. Who wants to tell me why?
I can, I
Good.
think. January 20th, you were traveling, so it's reduced 75%.
Great, perfect. You know, thank you, Alyssa. Great answer. Also, this can be a little difficult to understand. Okay. And so the system is doing a lot of the work for you. You just really have to go click check boxes for where, meals you don't want to claim. And 5925 is on both lines, and I could still reduce that by saying the day I left New York, the hotel provided breakfast. Okay. All right. So Poughkeepsie is $69 per diem for the day. I'm going to say breakfast provided. It went down to 53. New York is $79 per diem for the day. I'm going to say breakfast provided and also lunch because I ate with a colleague. And now look at what my per diems look like. Okay. Look at my per diems. So once I'm done clicking my check boxes, all the way down on the bottom again, and it's not very big, is a button called Create Expenses. So I'm going to click Create Expenses, and here's the magic, right? It put a line in with the city destination for each day that I traveled with the correct per diem amounts. All right. I'm sorry that per diem is more difficult on the expense report than it is on the request. But remember, a request has per diem as a lump sum, $410 for all 4 days. And on the expense report, you're telling the truth about an expense. So that truth is actuals, right? So the per diem has to be broken out on an expense report because the actuals are maybe way less than that lump sum total. I just helped someone with this yesterday, and she made kind of a comical remark like, does Concur know that we had a pandemic? And I said, why? And she said, because food costs a whole lot more than it used to. And the per diem for her trip to Las Vegas was pretty low. She said breakfast was $30, right? And I said, well, I don't know. I can't do anything about the actual amount, but it's true, right? Food costs are kind of soaring. All right.
I have a question real quick.
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, for per diem, it's really just when it's just for you, right? Or the delegate, whoever you're doing the expense report for, it's just for them to eat, correct?
Yes.
So if he has a business expense, that would be when he's eating with someone else and he chose not to eat, say, for example, breakfast at the hotel that was provided, and he chose to go out with his colleague for breakfast and he paid for it, that would be a business expense.
Well,
correct?
let's think about it. Is his colleague a UMB employee? Because then they both have per diem and that's all they get to claim.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if he did go out to eat, he'd still can claim the per diem.
Yep,
correct?
that's just per diem. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Just per diem. A
So
business
if it wasn't a UMB employee and he paid for it, then that's what we okay. All right.
Yeah, and there are all kinds of business meals can be part of travel, right? And business meals can be non-travel. So let's say someone, a recruit comes to Baltimore and the faculty take the recruit out to dinner.
Correct.
There's no travel involved, right?
No.
That's
right.
just a straight up business expense as a business meal. Let's say the recruiting happened in Chicago. So our faculty flew to Chicago to meet a recruit and then took that recruit out to dinner there. That's a business meal while he's traveling, and he should deduct per diem for that dinner.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I know. And, this is making us actually pay attention to policy where, because the system is going to say, I'm not giving you 2 dinners on the same day. You have per diem and you added a business meal, and I'm refusing to let you submit this, right? So business meals are a little bit tricky. They are typically only with non-UMB persons, okay? Non-UMB persons, and for any variety of reasons. And some can occur during travel. Per diem is for overnights. Per diem is for overnights. You cannot put per diem on an in-state trip, right? If you're just driving to Rockville, Maryland and coming home and you try to add per diem, the system is going to say, I don't see a hotel. Your trip type is in state, so you don't get per diem. That would be a day travel meal.
I have a question.
Sure.
So on that, what if like Dr. Reese went to DC and is staying overnight? You
Per
can do
diem.
per diem or you do not?
Nope, per diem. Well, let me ask John. So, no, I'm wrong. Any overnight you can get per diem, even if it's in state.
Okay, I just wanted
Correct.
to make sure DC was okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we consider DC in state,
But if
right?
it's overnight.
But the overnight lets him have per diem. Good question, you guys.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then something also along with what Alyssa was saying. So say if you are out of state and you're at a conference and they do supply breakfast at the conference, however, you go out with other people, do you, because it's supplied breakfast, do you not then get reimbursed because you had a chance to have breakfast, or can you do the business expense at that time?
Well, you're going out with other people. Are you paying?
Yeah, like let's say he paid.
Okay, so he would deduct that breakfast because he can't have breakfast per diem, and he would add a business meal
Okay.
with the people he took out.
So
You
it
just
is
can't have
allowed. I
both.
wasn't sure if like they do, if
Yeah.
they're definitely giving you breakfast. I didn't know if you have to take it.
I don't think that's true because what he has instead is a business meal with non-UMB people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense? There are a million types of per diem
I
questions.
know there are so many scenarios. It's crazy.
Yes. So you
Right,
just
there's-
remember, per diem is overnight.
Only overnight. Got it.
Yes.
And then
So
a
you
day.
have to be.
So
yeah,
what is a
what?
day travel meal? A day travel meal is just when you go out during the day for yourself if you're visiting somewhere?
Yes. So a day travel meal, I think the official policy says day travel meals are used when the traveler is in state and or out of state, but when the traveler is in a travel status of 8 hours or more.
Okay.
There's no overnight and there's no car and there's no
Mhm.
hotel. We just had to feed him, right? At some point during the day. So
Gotcha.
there's no per diem allowance, but add day travel meal and we will definitely pay for your lunch and pay for your dinner depending on how long you were gone. But the key is this 8-hour travel status, right?
Okay.
And no one is walking around with a watch and a clock to make sure you were there 8 hours, but in general it means you were gone all day and we needed to feed you.
Okay.
Well, on that note, what if say I was going to a meeting in Cambridge and it only lasted till from 9 to 3. And
Okay.
I had to buy my own lunch, so I don't get.
No, you drove there and it took 2 hours to get to Cambridge, Maryland.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
So that would be fine.
Total, it has to be 8 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
John, do you
Okay.
have anything to add to that? I mean, that's what
correct.
policy says.
Right. Nope, that's exactly correct.
Okay, great.
And then, so I do have another question. I have a few of them for Dr. Reese that are pending, and I wasn't sure. So he stayed at overnight in DC, and he listed his meals as business meals. They really were not. They were for himself. So should he list those as day travel meals, or should he do the per diem?
He stayed overnight, right?
Correct.
He gets per diem.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay, we don't need receipts for per diem.
Right.
That per diem is a reimbursed item, whether you ate, $20 of worth of food or zero. Let's say you
Okay.
skipped breakfast, right?
Mhm.
That travel allowance, that per diem is a business perk. Am I explaining that right, John?
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
The
people,
example,
go ahead, John.
the example we get, that we were just talking about with a breakfast, and the breakfast was a continental breakfast at an event, at a conference. If the traveler elects to go out, because they don't have what they like for breakfast, if they don't, they have something else that they have to do, maybe get on a computer and they're going out for breakfast, that would be a per diem meal. And you
Yep.
would add that per diem meal back in, even though the conference is providing continental breakfast. Now, where you may run into trouble with that is with the CCA, the cost center approver saying, well, wait a minute, I already paid for it in the conference. Now I'm paying for it, because the traveler is not taking advantage of a continental breakfast. They say, well, I couldn't eat that. All they had was rolls and juice, and I have allergies. I can't eat any of that, so I had to go out and get something else.
Yeah.
But that's where the comments come in handy, is putting it down in the comments so that as it's going through the approvals, people understand why you did what you did.
Yes.
Okay, so that is allowed though, so that could be overrode, is what you're saying.
Correct. You wouldn't
Gotcha.
the box. You wouldn't check the box for breakfast in the morning on the per diem. You would leave that as you're being reimbursed. You don't need a receipt for that, because you're going to
Mhm.
get for that breakfast.
But just leave a comment if you got breakfast elsewhere.
Correct.
I did not know that. That is good to know. Thank you. All these years.
Yeah. Well, and you may run into problems with, like I said, with the cost center approver saying, well, wait a minute.
Correct.
Because they went to the conference and I paid for it. But
So, and then at that time, does the cost center approver, it's up to them and they don't have to approve it and they can say no?
Correct.
Okay.
So that's why you put the information in the comments so that everybody that's approving it understands why it was done.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
And there are, we have rules, and then there are people who actually travel, and they can't sit in coach because they're 6'8" and their legs won't fit, and they can't eat breakfast that has gluten in it, so they can't eat it at the hotel. I mean, so we have policies, and then we have people traveling. So we just need to manage, and honestly, put your comments in there. The cost center, everybody's supposed to look at comments, the cost center approver, but also the office of the controller, right? And any auditor will look at this and say, oh, did you let this person have 5 duplicate meals? And so put the comments in there about what is happening or why you need to do something. Okay, I like teaching this class because there's always a lot of really good questions. All right, I'm not going to show you these two that are called combining business and personal travel. This document is in the request class and it's in the expense report class because it takes you through both things. Okay. It takes you through how to create a travel request and appropriately document that you're going to be staying over the whole weekend in that foreign city, right? And then what do you do when you are going to do your expense report? So this document, combining business and personal, shows you the request side, how to appropriately document, like, hey, yeah, I know the flight costs more to come back on Sunday, so I'm only going to enter the amount of the flight that I would have taken if I had come home Friday, right? So I'm going to document that on my request. And then what do you do on the expense report when your spouse traveled with you or you stayed over 3 days and you have charges that aren't allowable? Okay. So I want you just to know that it's here so you can use it when that situation comes up. This next one is called using third-party payment method and reimbursement on behalf of others expense type. There's a new expense type called reimbursement on behalf of others. Okay, so what's the scenario? Dr. Smith is paying for train tickets for himself and 2 students to a conference. The students are going to enter conference expense type, and the students are going to enter the train expense type. Okay, the students are going to enter those on their requests, but whatever Dr. Smith has paid for, the student is going to select third-party payment as that payment method. All right, then the professor's expense report should reflect out of pocket as the payment method, and in the comments he's going to enter the names of each student that he traveled, that he paid for. Another thing that the professor can do is when he adds the reimbursement on behalf of others expense type, he's going to enter just the amount he paid for the student. He's going to enter a train expense type for himself, correct? He took the train, so he's going to have one train expense type for himself, and for the student, he's going to add an expense type that's not train. It is going to be reimbursement on behalf of others. And that expense type, reimbursement on behalf of others, is going to force the doctor to name the student and also enter the student's approved travel request ID. Okay, so again, approved travel request is rearing its head. If you're asking for reimbursement because you paid for someone else's travel, you need the approved travel request ID. That student or that traveler had to have permission to travel. Okay. So I'm not going to go through this one, but just think of it this way. The student would not be claiming that expense. He's going to enter the expense and the amount, but his payment type, his expected payment method is going to be third party. And then he can just type in the comments, Dr. Smith bought our train tickets. And then Dr. Smith is going to, on his report, add his own train ticket or whatever it is. And then he's also going to add reimbursement on behalf of others, one for each student that he paid for. And he's going to need the approved request ID. So that's what this documentation is all about in this tutorial. All right, we only have a couple minutes left. Let me show you how to itemize expenses in the time we have left. Look what else you can look at. Allocating funding sources in an expense report, acknowledging missing receipts, using the currency converter. I would definitely tap through these. Okay, definitely tap through these. Using the currency converter is a situation like I was in Mexico. I had to pay out of pocket for cabs. Okay. And my receipt is in pesos. So I'm going to enter 20,000 pesos or whatever that actually is. And I'm going to use the currency converter and it's going to say, you're getting $60 back. Okay. Super, super easy to use. But the currency converter is when the traveler has paid for something out of his own pocket that is in a foreign currency. And when you click currency converter, it'll convert it into US dollars, and that's what he'll get reimbursed for. All right, let's look at this one about itemizing. Super easy to do. Itemizing is really good when you have one receipt, but that receipt has several days of something on it. So what's a good example? A good example would be your statement that you get from EasyPass, right? The statement you get from EasyPass is going to have a bunch of tolls on it and what you spent for each toll. But you only get one receipt. You don't get a receipt every time you go through a toll. So we're going to break down that receipt into the individual days with the individual charges. And there's going to be a lot of examples of this. I just used that EasyPass example. You know what else this will let you do? This will let you, let's say you went to a conference and you had to go to a Staples store or something like that, and you had to purchase materials, but then you also had to, you had to buy some office supplies, but then you also had to have some printing done. Those are two separate object codes, but you have one Staples receipt. So you could itemize the office supplies under one object code, and you could select the printing expense type for the other, to use the other object code. Does that make sense? So you can break the receipt down into individual days or into different expense types, which will charge the appropriate object codes. Itemizing is only ever done on an expense report, not on a request. All right, so if you can give me 3 more minutes, we'll get this done and I'll give you back the rest of your day. All right, I went to expenses. Here's my expense report for a trip, and it's not been submitted yet. Sorry. So I'm just going to click to open it. And I have some expenses here, car mileage, tolls, okay? But I only have one receipt for the tolls. So I'm going to click and open that tolls, or I can do this while I'm adding the toll charges also. So as you can see, the tolls expense type has a date of 12/2 for the charges, but you need to split this among 3 separate days that you traveled. Okay. So we're going to go to itemization. I'm starting with $24 in tolls, and I want to itemize that $24. Once you start itemizing the $24, you have to itemize all of it. Okay. You can't just say 12 is here. The system is going to be sitting there waiting like, what's the other 12 for? Okay. So on any expense type that you want to itemize, you're going to click itemization, and look at it, shows you the amount you're going to itemize and the remaining. So this remaining has to get to 0. So I'm going to click create itemization. And now here's where I would have a choice of selecting a different expense type, right? In the example I mentioned a minute ago, some of it is office supplies and some of it is printing materials for a conference. And I want to make sure I use the correct object code, okay? In this example, it's all tolls, but I still need to answer this question, expense type. So I'm going to click the drop down and select tolls. And when I do that, more fields are going to open up. And in the amount field, I'm going to say $12, my first itemization. And in the comments, I'm going to say trips down to Donaldson Brown on 12/2. Okay, Donaldson Brown is an event center that we have. And sometimes employees have to go down and help out. All right, so my first itemization, $12 in tolls and road charges for going down to Donaldson Brown on 12/2, let's say twice. All right, and I'm going to save. Look, $12 remaining. I have to keep going. I'm going to click create itemization. I'm going to find the expense type again. When I click the drop down, it'll be right here in the recently used. Okay, I'll select tolls. And then I'm going to give this one a different date. What other day did I drive down to Donaldson Brown? I went on the 8th of December. You could also just type that in. Okay, the amount I spent on the 8th was $6. And my comment, trip down to Donaldson Brown and back. And then I'll save that itemization. All right, I have $6 left to deal with. I'm not going to be able to submit this without addressing this remaining amount. I'm going to click create itemization, and I'm going to add the last tolls expense. The transaction date for this one will be 12/9. I spent $6 going down and back on 12/9, and trip to DB on 12/9. Okay, so I'm just documenting the amounts, and comment says I went on this day. All right, I'm going to click Save Itemization. And when I do that, the system is going to show me what I created in case I made a mistake. All right. If you want to change one of these, you can just click the checkbox, and under the More Actions button right here, which will be activated after you click a checkbox. On the More Actions, you'll be able to edit or delete it. Okay, so I'm going to save this expense. And when I do, I come out to the main screen again, and you can see that $24, it says itemized right underneath it. And now I'm going to just upload my receipt, which is my MVA toll statement, or Easy Pass, Department of Transportation. I'm going to find the toll statement, open it, and there it is right there. And that $24 has been itemized. And now if I want to see the itemization, I just use that down arrow and pop it open, and it shows me exactly how that $24 was split up. Okay, and then I can collapse that section. I can open it or collapse it. Not hard, right? Okay, just going to submit the report and accept and continue, etc. Okay, guys, there is a way to acknowledge missing receipts. Remember, the person who traveled has to do this function. So if your doctor's missing a receipt, and these are really, you have to make every effort to get an actual electronic receipt, but sometimes you don't claim tips. I think travel policy is that they don't reimburse anyone for tips. Is that right, John?
Yeah, it's in the per diems now. So it's if you have $30, let's say, as a per diem for dinner, it's $30 plus the $6. It would put a 20% tip in there. That is all included in the per diems now. So you don't have to do $5 here or $2 here. I believe it's also in, I want to say it's with the hotel, because sometimes you'll leave a couple of dollars for the housekeeping staff, but I'm not sure of that one. I know it's in the per diems though.
Okay, great.
Makes
Yes,
things a little easier.
If you paid, we just did this yesterday with the example where I said the person needed to create per diem. She said, okay, I have these Uber receipts, right? And as she was entering the Uber receipts, okay, Kinga, thank you for coming. Let us know what you need. So as she was entering her Uber receipts, she said, oh, what do I do about the tip? And I said, oh, okay, wait a minute. You have to deduct the tip from the cab driver, right? For the Uber, she had 2 Ubers and a Lyft ride. She had 3 or 4 different cabs that she took. And so we just manually subtracted the $5 or whatever. And then she left a comment, right? This is the Lyft receipt minus the tip. And then the amount reflected that receipt minus the tip. Now, acknowledging missing receipts, you have to make every effort to get the receipt. And if it's a hotel, flight, car, you will be able to get it. When people are missing a receipt, it's usually something like they paid for a cab. Okay. And not every cab will give you a receipt. Sometimes they just hand you a blank one. But the traveler has to do this. The delegate can't do this for them. Another one down here at the bottom that we're not going to have time to go over that's going to be important to you is viewing your expense report payment. So how do I know when that my expense report has been sent to payment? I put something in for Dr. Smith, a travel expense report. It's been like 4 weeks, and Dr. Smith stopped by my desk and said, do you know when will you check up on that expense report payment? So this last document will show you super easy, really, how to just look up the payment. You basically open the report and it'll have a status. And so sent for payment means the report will be processed on the Wednesday of the payroll processing week. And payment confirmed means the payment was confirmed on the Thursday before their actual payday. And remember, non-employee travel, that payment information is in the non-PO invoice in Quantum Financials. All right, guys, I'm going to stop sharing. And I enjoyed my time with you this morning. I'm going to collect the questions out of the chat. Don't forget to put in a help ticket. If you get stuck, we are actively working these all day long, honestly. And we want you to let us know what you need. help@umaryland.edu. If you send me an email, and just send me, it has to be like a very short question. Okay. If I have to spend any time on it, we really need a help ticket. So if you say, hey, can someone, do anything about missing receipts? And I can just say, yes, they sure can. Here's the document that shows you how, that's fine in an email. But if you have like hung up errors and we need screen prints, then that really needs to go in a help ticket. And I'm encouraging you to visit the business applications page and take advantage of those job aids and those recorded sessions. And these recorded sessions that we did this week will be up there fairly soon. Okay, any questions before we end? Thanks for staying over 10 minutes. And if there are no extra questions, I'm going to give you back the rest of your day.
Thanks, Laura.
You are welcome.